Welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. This is On the Anvil, episode 56.
Yeah.
This is the
Just told you 3 minutes ago.
We take you behind the scenes here at Dwarven Forge and talk about what we're thinking about, show you what we're working on, talk gaming, mostly hang out for 2 hours, have a drink, and in this case, hang out with a couple of special guests. I am Nate. I'm joined here in the studio by Chris, and all the way from, what do you call it, Frosty Canada? I don't know, where are you from?
Frosty Canada. It's just regular Canada.
Oh.
It is not Frosty Canada right now. It is boiling over Canada right now.
What is boiling for you? What is boiling for you?
Boiling over for us? Let's see. It's pushing up to 30 degrees Celsius, which I guess is about 80 Fahrenheit.
What?
So that's boiling over for us.
Not the worst it's ever been, but it's also humid. It's very humid these days.
Well, from boiling over humid Canada, we have the one and only, or the two and only, or 2 of 4 and only Dungeon Dudes, Kelly and Monty. Is it Montgomery, Monty, Martin, and Kelly McLaughlin, right? Did I get all your names right? I should have notes or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You did amazing.
That's so weirdly formal.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Well, I feel like you should. Aren't we supposed to say people's last names? Is like,
Wait, really?
I don't know.
Always? You never say ours.
No, it's true.
I'm in the. I've been thinking about it. I'm in the process of also finishing my PhD thesis, and I'm still deciding whether I'm gonna make people call me Doc Martin.
Oh, yes. I mean, you have to now. Like, although, I have to say, docs wear out too fast. As someone who wears combat boots every day of the year, I say they don't last. I can rip through a pair of docs in like 6 months.
Although you know what? Dwarven Forge's dock pack is actually made of dwarvenite, so it's indestructible and it'll last you a lifetime.
Oy.
You can pass those on to your kids, and the more you get, the more the more impressive docks you can make. They go together really well.
So, we got a great show for you tonight, full of awesome puns about Dwarvenite and then Joe Manganiello's ABS abs.
Yes.
We are going to, we have a giveaway at the halfway point. We're going to give away a $50 gift certificate. We're going to show a fan build. We're going to talk about the Dungeon Dudes have a record-setting Kickstarter. I don't know what records it's breaking, but I'm sure it's breaking all of them. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about DM tips, playing tips. We're going to talk about what the best Canadian something is. I don't know.
Amazing.
And we're gonna take questions from you guys. But first, we have some news, right?
Yeah.
What happened, Chris? Are you okay?
I want to
Epiphany?
open a restaurant in Canada called Poutine on the Ritz.
Oh,
And-
well, it's not too late.
Yeah.
Except we just told the internet
Somebody's
about
probably already done it. Yeah, somebody's gonna jump on it. There's entrepreneurs watching us. 530,000 on Kickstarter already. Wow. Okay.
it. Well, you buried the lead. I mean, you wrote this story.
Sorry.
Wait,
Well, they put it in chat. I'm just reading the chat.
Woo!
That was by Boris Kenpachi. That's a cool name.
Amazing.
Yes, a little bit of news. We sent out a Wildlands update today. If you missed the email or something, if you're wondering why we haven't been updating you about Wildlands, we've been updating you at least once a month. If you're not getting the emails, something might be wrong.
I would say precisely once a month.
Exactly once a month. That's exactly what we do.
Down to the last, I had 6 hours left in the day. We got it out, though. We're down to the last day of the month.
Yeah.
But we're always going to send them out probably at the very end because the new stuff, literally more stuff came in today. In fact, this guy will show next week. Let me see the
Yeah.
glowing Bielek-Meyer basilisk. Show you guys too.
Nice.
So
Much
we'll do all the new pieces next week. We'll show you the latest on Wildlands. But I think that's all we have in the news, right? Update went out, and we'll be back to the next week. We'll look at whatever all the latest and greatest is. We have almost everything for test shots.
We're super close. There's like less than 10 pieces left, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, we're really close to done with test shots.
Woo!
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go. Let's dive into our main feature, some hard-hitting questions with the Dungeon Dudes here.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like what's the best thing in Canada?
Best thing in Canada is the Dungeon Dudes.
These are facts.
What is the best thing in
Maple
in Canada?
syrup.
No, dude, that's
I
the best thing
think-
in Vermont. You can't take that from Vermont. Come on.
I think the best thing in Canada is that you get to have the Canadian smugness of not being American.
Oh, that is 1,000% true.
You know, whenever
Absolutely.
Canadians like, I think one of the best things about being Canadian is when you travel internationally, and you speak English, and most Canadians, unless you're French Canadian or maybe a Newfie, you sound pretty American,
Newfie.
right?
From Newfoundland.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
And so people like, I've traveled internationally up until recent times every year, and people go, "Oh, are you American?" And then the moment you say, "No, I'm Canadian," and their personality just changes on a dime.
We are told at a young age that if you're traveling, you put a Canadian flag on
Yeah,
your bags so that people like you more.
I know Americans who do that.
Yeah, we can probably pull that off.
I mean,
Yeah.
southern North Americans versus northern North Americans.
I can pull it off.
Yeah,
I've seen Dudley do right.
It's so
Yeah,
good.
but-
I love
but
you,
I-
Monty. You're the best.
Also, I don't know. Some people still say that we have a bit of an accent, though, eh?
Oh,
No.
don't you know?
I don't know what that's all
Don't you-
about.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Let's can you tell people who you guys are? So you are the Dungeon Dudes. What are the Dungeon Dudes for like the two people that don't know?
Well, Kelly and I, for the past couple of years, have been posting videos on YouTube once or twice a week where we cover everything D&D, where we do advice for players, we do guides on the classes, subclasses, character builds, and we also do Dungeon Master advice, so how to run campaigns, and how to homebrew material, how to create things, reviews of the core stuff. Although we usually do reviews of the classes and the subclasses and stuff. So that's mostly what we do on YouTube, but we do a lot more than just the YouTube stuff. Kelly?
Wait, there's more?
Yeah,
there's
there's always more. We also have our live stream campaign, Dungeons of Drakkenheim with Season 1. We are currently on Season 2, Shadows of Drakkenheim, which airs on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. on Twitch. It also goes up on YouTube on Friday. You can catch all of the episodes there, or you can check them out on podcast as well. What else do we do?
I mean, do you need to do more than that? That's three things a week already.
Well, we also just launched a Kickstarter for our campaign book based on Season 1 of Dungeons of Drakkenheim. So pretty early on in live streaming our campaign, people started asking us, they love the world, they love the campaign, can we have your DM notes so we can run it ourselves? And so we listened to that. People were asking, like, when are you going to do a book? And so just about a year ago, we started looking for some partners to help us with that. And so we ended up partnering with Ghostfire Games, who are the publishers of the Grim Hollow settings and books. And we became very good friends with them as well. And they said, we have a gap in our schedule, in our publishing schedule in 2021. Do you want to do Drakkenheim? And we pitched it, and that was that. So since then, we've been working on writing the manuscript for the book, and we just launched on Kickstarter. Now we're just past the first 48 hours to bring this whole thing to life. It is a complete level 1 to 13 campaign in a unique setting, the world of Drakkenheim, which is a fantasy capital city that was struck by a mysterious meteor and is now fought over by rival factions and horrific monsters. And it is a very open-ended, non-linear campaign filled with all sorts of player-driven decisions and some interesting challenges as well that kind of upend a couple of the things that you might expect from a normal 5th edition campaign.
Woo! And everything's purple. So
Everything is purple. Everything
we do
is
like purple.
it's the best.
we chose purple because a really big actual inspiration for me. I'm a huge fan of Terry Pratchett. And one of the things that we often described in this was actually that the color of Drakkenheim, the color of the crystals, is octarine, which is the color of magic. And of course, octarine is a color that you can't represent, although Pratchett called it a purple, green, yellow sort of color.
Classic.
And so my standard practice for representing the delirium crystals is to just put the crystal caverns out on their flashing
Yeah.
LED mode and just get them all across the whole
everything.
rainbow. Yeah. That way you get it all. So, but both Kelly and I think, purple is a very magical sort of color. So that was the, and also the kind of the inside joke behind it is Drakenheim is now suffused by an eldritch contamination called the haze. So put purple together with that.
I also think it's interesting that they recently made a movie of H.P. Lovecraft's The Color Out of Space, and the color that they used to represent the unfathomable color was purple. So it seems to come up a lot. It's like, if there's a color that you can't actually comprehend, it's actually just purple.
Yeah. And The Color Out of Space was a huge inspiration for this project. Like, all that dark fantasy and cosmic horror is like our jam.
You love cosmic horror. It's like unsettling. I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
For sure.
I love chaos. I love. There's a little bit of a nihilist in me, so for that, like, the cosmic horror really appeals to that.
So let me ask you, before we talk about the Kickstarter itself. So a year ago, Ghostfire's like, we have a window for you, and you're like, all right, it's all sunshine and rainbows and great. When did the dread set in? Like, when did you? At what point did you get over? You're like, wait a second. Like, it's a year. It's like committing to something a year from now is like, oh yeah, no problem. That sounds great. But like, when did it get real?
Okay, for me anyway, writing the book, we were going over Monty's game prep notes from the actual campaign, which were shockingly not very filled out.
It's like stick figures in crayon.
Well, I've told the story a few times. One of my favorite moments was there's a part of the city called Queen's Park Garden, and Monty was like, can you work on that section? I was like, sure, send me your campaign notes. And I get the campaign notes, and there's half a page, and it says, like, it has a photo of a garden, and then it says creeping moss ? Yellow lily ? Lenore period. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to work with that. I'm going to work with this and see what I can do. And I'm like,
Lenore was a given. So as long as you have Lenore to start with, the rest kind of, yellow lily.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. But the dread started to set in, I think, around when we were finishing our rough draft. And
that was like yesterday? What was that?
Yeah, this was an hour ago. No. It was a little. We actually finished the rough draft well before the Kickstarter, but there was like a month or two left before we needed the final version, and suddenly Monty and I started being like, "Does this make sense? Are the monsters all in the right place? Does everything make sense?
Well,
Does
you have
this
to lock
story
it, right?
flow? Yeah.
It suddenly becomes like, when it's a living document and you're playing whatever, suddenly it's like, wait a second, we have to put pencils down and other people have to look at this. It's not, they can't just look at Yellow Lily's ? And make sense out of that. Like, you need to have, it needs to all make sense and be real, and you can't touch it anymore. It goes out into the wild and people look at it and judge it and all that, it's all this stuff, and the doubt will come at you hard, right?
Yeah, I've used this metaphor a few times. It might be a weird metaphor, but it makes so much sense to me. It's like, this is Monty and me having a baby. And for 9 months, we sat in a room creating it. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, at some point this baby's going to be out there in the world. It's going to be, other people are going to see this baby, and we don't want them to be like, oh, wow, you have an ugly baby. Like, it's like, well, we have to show the baby to people. And so that was just a very intimidating thought, because when we're running the stream, there's the filter of us like improving all over the place. But now in a book, we're not improving. We're building, and we're creating structure that other people need to be able to use to improv. And I think that's around where I was like, oh my God, this is a big project, and we hope that it works out.
Well, you have to write down all the stuff that's normally in your brain as a DM. Like, your DM notes, you can literally work with 2 question marks in a period, and you know what that is. You can roll into it. You can't hand that to people. It's a whole.
Yeah.
I've run an entire 3-hour adventure at my home off of a note that said, "The party is getting drunk tonight." and that was an entire 3-hour adventure. But like, that's not going to work in a book.
No, well, not in a good book, at least maybe. Not in a book that's already raised $500,000 in 2 days. So it's pretty dynamite.
I think the biggest moment for me. So one of the areas that we never explored in the original show was what's in the crater. What is actually there? What is at the source? And full disclosure, for about the first half of the live stream campaign, I didn't know.
Yeah, well, because you didn't need to fill it in yet. You weren't there.
Sometimes the question is way more interesting than any answer, right?
Yeah, and that question, for me as well, one of the things that I wanted to be true to was the fear of the unknown and the unknowable that is so important to the feeling of cosmic horror. And one of the, a lot of cosmic horror, as soon as you can punch Cthulhu in the face, cosmic horror isn't cosmic horror anymore. And so there's kind of that existential dread that you want to create with it. And I remember finishing that section of the book and writing it, and being like, I felt the dread of it because it was like, I feel small in the universe, but also like, I hope that this resonates with other people and that the themes that we're going for extend out to that. I don't want to spoil what's there yet or anything like that, but I think that for me that there's so much media now where the big reveal happens and it's not satisfying.
Did you ever see The Descent?
No.
Yes.
Right?
I had all these women are going like spelunking, and they go in this cave, and it's like, it's dark in the moon, and there's movement. There's a thing, right? There's something in the darkness, and you get this little glimpse of it, and someone breaks their arm, and it's gritty, and it's claustrophobic, it's whatever, and it's like, the tension's building, and finally, like, someone whips a flashlight around her, and it's like a dude in like a rubber bat suit. You're like, rah!
The first half of that movie is way scarier than the second half.
And then you're like, it's just a dude in a rubber bat suit with like buck teeth. You're like, oh man. I was like, it's over. Like the big reveal just tanks, and the whole rest of it's just like, who cares?
Mm-hmm. and I think for me, I think that feeling, it's very interesting working with cosmic horror and dark fantasy in the genre of like 5th edition in particular, because oftentimes in a lot of D&D stories, it's about the big damn heroes who come in at the end, and they kill Tiamat, they kill the Lich, and the problem is over.
Yeah.
And from the very outset of creating this world, I wanted to go true to those dark fantasy roots, where at the end of every Lovecraft story is this palpable feeling of like, what if it comes back?
Right. It's not tied up with a neat bow and done.
Yeah.
It's like, was one.
And it's hard to execute that. So I think my biggest bit of dread is going to come actually when we fully share this world with people, and I hope that those things and those ideas resonate with everybody. Because we didn't want to do one of my biggest inspirations actually for this was Keith Baker's Eberron. Yes. And Eberron is an amazing world, and Eberron's biggest mystery is the Mournland, which is there's. And again, like, look at the Mournland, Drakenheim. Like, the Mournland, magical cataclysm, expands out, destroys a huge landscape, leaving a warped wasteland of wild magic. Hey. But in Eberron, it's intentionally left up to the dungeon master to decide what happened. And the setting very clearly discloses that. And I knew that I didn't want to do that with Drakenheim. I wanted to do something that was like, this is the truth. But conceivably, anyone could run Drakenheim and decide, Monty, you kind of missed it on this one, so we're changing it. And that's the power of D&D, right?
Well, we'll find out in April of 2022, right?
Yeah.
I think that basically we just wanted to nail the cosmic horror
Yeah.
and just make sure that there is that sort of the dread and the unconclusion of all things. And if you watch our stream, like season 1 ends with like a question mark.
Yeah.
It's like we have solved a problem and made more problems.
Well,
But
clearly,
it still has
that's-
to feel satisfying. It still has
Yeah.
to feel like the players accomplished something.
It was
So that-
important too.
So striking that balance has been the biggest challenge of this whole project. And I'm really proud of the work that we did, though. But I'm really excited to find out how people react to it.
well, I think you nailed the dread as soon as you included a plush Rat King. You know, you get like that's it. Like you're, the
Dread level is high.
It's there. Like, what do we, So, so you guys launched this thing and it skyrocketed, right? You just kicked the door off, and it's been going gangbusters, right? You've already raised $500,000. Clearly went way faster through stretch goals than you were planning. It's also been really interesting because the trajectory has been very steady. Like it was, you cranked through 100K in the first hour, but then it just kept going. Like usually it'll be that first hour, and then it kind of peters off, the full day goes. But it was like, it's been going very steadily for a couple of days, which is, it's sort of an uncharacteristic trajectory. Usually it peters off very quickly after those first couple hours, and then, settle down. But it's really impressive. What does it feel like, right? You've backed a lot of Kickstarters, you've watched a lot of Kickstarters. I know you've backed our Kickstarters. You've watched the train, like now you're driving the train. Like what's it like?
Scary.
Yeah.
It was shocking. It was honestly, Monty and I had a lot of anxieties building up to the launch day. I'm gonna say the weekend before, like last weekend. Not a lot of sleep was had, and I honestly was like, wow, I hope we hit our goals. And I was saying this in our Discord that in my mind, and apparently I was very wrong on this, but in my mind, I imagined, okay, well, we have 300,000 subscribers on YouTube, but out of those, only a small portion are DMs.
Yeah.
And out of those, only a small portion of those DMs watch Drakenheim.
Yeah.
And out of those, only a small portion are going to actually care that we're making a book. So now we've whittled it down, and I'm like, so I hope we
That's
hit our
3
goal.
people.
I'm like there's a handful of people that will back this project, and as soon as we hit it in the first 5 minutes, I was just like, what does this mean? What do we do now? And it just kept going, and I don't know. Monty and I just keep having to like say congratulations to each other and figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember. Go ahead.
I'm just really excited that we get to actually hit the stretch goals, because we had a lot of content that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to fit it into the page count of the book. That was a really interesting constraint.
Yeah.
Because when we were doing the writing, it was like, oh, now we have to think about page count versus stretch goals and how big we can do this. I have Monty Cook's Tallus, which is a 700-page like monstrosity, and we knew that something like that was definitely beyond the scope of what we would be able to do, but we're still looking at something that's going to be a big thick boy. So being able to add a lot of these things to this has been really rewarding, and honestly, I am just filled with so much gratitude and utterly humbled by it. I just all the folks that have come out to support this, I'm very, very humbled that people are so excited to jump into this world and take part in this project. The appreciation and the gratitude that I have for all involved, just that's how I feel. Grateful.
A lot of emotions in the last few days.
Yeah. Well, also you haven't slept in a week, so that also ramps everything up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to Monty a week or more ago, and you're talking about how you were nervous about whether things were going to go well at the launch. And I remember looking at it, and you had like something like 1,200 people like following the Kickstarter page before it launched. And I'm like, oh no, you guys are going to be fine. Like don't like I hadn't seen numbers that high on something that wasn't like a super mass marketed product before. And I think I was talking to Nate about it too. On YouTube, because you're also your main audience is your YouTube audience. Like that is where you started, which is a very different thing than for us. So it's interesting to like look at it, and with your with your Drakkenheim series, you get like you're still pulling like 12,000 views, like 28 episodes into a season, which is wild for a live play. And so I think it's just that thing where I think the audience that you've cultivated is people who are genuinely very engaged and actually invested in the stuff that you guys make, which is
clearly,
which is really cool. Yeah,
'Cause
like those people are watching and they're wanting to be able to play the game that you guys are playing, basically. Which I think is really cool.
It's
Yeah.
very heartwarming. I mean, we've always had fun playing, and I mean, I think the whole reason why Dungeon Dude started, one of the things that I realized is I played at a few tables, but I always came back to Monty's table. Monty got me into D&D, and like I played under a few other DMs, and although like I wouldn't say I've ever played under a bad DM, but I started to realize that I was like, no, I loved that session, by the way. But anyway, that you know, Monty has his background in theater, and I have my background in film, and it was just this decision. I'm like, there's so much energy at our table when we play, and I was like, we just need to turn on some cameras. And at first we were doing the informational videos because I was like, well, Monty's also an encyclopedia of D&D knowledge, and I am eating all of that up constantly. So together we kind of were like, let's turn on the cameras and do that. But more and more I was like, I think our games are fun and entertaining, and that I love to role play. Monty loves to create stories. And so I'm like, between that, if we get a nice team of some of our favorite role playing friends who are just like 110% in, then it's going to be fun. And I'm really happy at how that's all turned out. I was thrilled. Drakkenheim is honestly probably the most important passion project that I've ever worked on in my entire life. So,
has it become your full-time project?
Yeah. So both of us are now doing YouTube and now YouTube and writing full time. So we've had a couple other writing gigs now that are coming past our desks as well, which has been really exciting. And so that was actually one of the craziest things about this year, because when everything started last year, both of us were still working. Kelly and I became friends because we both worked at a computer shop together. Kelly was still there. I was still teaching at the universities here, and I was working for a software company as well. And so it has just been in the past year where we were like, actually around the time that the Drakkenheim book started to take shape, that project, where we were like, oh yeah, if we're gonna do this, we have to be all in on it. So it was a bit of a leap of faith at first. There was definitely a little while where we both really felt it, but it's been
terrifying,
really exciting. Yeah.
And how awesome that we're in an age where you can make a living playing D&D, making D&D content. This is like, it doesn't even make
so
sense.
Wild.
We're making D&D toys for a living. Like, it's just like, this is, it's really unreal.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I remember getting into D&D and my mom being like, don't play too much D&D. And now I make a living playing D&D. So I showed you, Mom. No, I'm joking. She's been very supportive.
Yeah. Parents have been awesome on this. Like my parents are. I think that this is one of those things where definitely when we started this, I got the same slack from my parents where they're like, I hope you're not spending all your time making those YouTube videos and not working on your PhD. And I was like, all right. I'm working really hard on both these things. It's a passion
just
project.
one a little more than the other.
It's a balance. But incidentally, the cool thing about it is that because I come from a theater background, my PhD studies are in theater and technology specifically. I have a background in theater and software. It turned out that now a whole chapter, the final chapter of my thesis is actually talking about live streaming D&D.
That's cheating.
And
That's
so what actually turned out to be it was a conversation actually with my PhD supervisor, because she had sat in on one of our game sessions at a few times and started watching. And she was like, and she said to me one day, because I'd always thought of myself as a technician and a designer in the theater world, and she said to me, Monty, what you're doing is performance. You are a performer. You are performing for an audience, and you have tapped into this this storyteller element. And not only that, but D&D is really special because it is collaborative creation, and definitely from the theater world. One of the things that I've actually come from in studying theater is, in the theater industry, the holy grail of achievement is like audience engagement, audience participation, being able to really live that world, and especially a big thing in the theater world now, especially in the indie side of things, is experiential audience participation and those sorts of things. And I kind of had this realization that, like, in a lot of ways, role playing games, and now my new line to a lot of the folks that I know from the theater side of things is, so have you played D&D? And they realize that a lot of the times when I've introduced actors or directors or writers to Dungeons and Dragons, they go, "Oh, this is the thing."
Turns out this is the thing.
We've got a whole wave of people in chat who are asking for a copy of your dissertation, or a copy of your thesis, I should say.
Stretch goal.
Stretch goal. You might have to throw it in there at the rate you guys are going.
Might have to. There's some pretty heady stuff. We'll see if it gets past editing. I'm a very bad academic.
Well, it doesn't seem to be slowing you down on your,
Yeah.
So what's the thing you guys are most excited or most proud of in this Kickstarter? I mean, besides actually launching, which is a Herculean accomplishment to begin with. But was there anything specific that's like you're like, oh, this is the thing I'm so excited about?
The thing I'm really excited about with this project specifically is I've read through and run a lot of the 5th edition modules, and many of them are great and wonderful stories. But I think that what we're doing with ours is slightly different. It's enough different that it feels unique. And I'll give a detail on what I mean by that. We've kind of turned a few of the initial ideas. Like, every time that you look at a D&D campaign, you expect certain things, and we've taken a few of those expectations and turned them on their head. This is a challenging campaign. We've designed it in a way that makes characters think a little bit more about the choices that they're going to make, and we've tried to design it so that it's still easy to run, it's still fluid, it's a really open-ended campaign, but we've really gone hard on the idea that a lot of people at the outset of the campaign were trying to guess who the big bad guy was, and really in this campaign it's about who the characters choose. There's a bunch of factions fighting in the city, and really the big bad guy is, who are you going to choose as your allies and who's going to become your villains?
By their choices, the consequences of their choices are these, this faction becomes the big bad faction because
I was curious about that, because you do describe it as a non-linear adventure, which for levels 1 to 13 is a pretty large undertaking. I was curious just how far that went.
What I really like, I was just going to make one last point, is the thing I really like about that is, in our live stream, we played a very specific path that we chose. And some people are like, why did they choose to join the Amethyst Academy, was who we joined in our show, one of the factions. And the fact is, I'm so excited to hear about people who fight against the Amethyst Academy and chose the Queen of Thieves, who ended up being one of our big villains. There's a whole play style where you join the Queen of Thieves and you do her tasks to take over Drakenheim. And that's going to feel like an entirely different campaign than the one that we showed on like our first season. But it's the same story, just what did the characters choose? And
it's
so
a
the
living
replayability.
Yeah. You basically you go in and you kind of choose it, and it reacts, the world reacts depending on how you choose. And Didn't you guys as
yeah.
players, like the Rat King was like a throwaway character that you guys got really into, right? And suddenly
Yeah.
like
He was
Yeah.
supposed to die in the first episode, but we decided that we liked him and we kept him and tried to manipulate him. And you can watch how that turned out in season 1 of Drakkenheim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way that we juggle it to break down actually some of the mechanics is Drakkenheim has a bit of a meta structure behind the sandbox. So you can, as a dungeon master, one of the cool things that this is one of the things I love is we were really careful to make the DM screen is a panoramic view of the city. And then we have a cloth map that you can get of the city as well. So you can actually point to a location on the map and point to a location in the city and on the screen, and there's a connection there. So in that respect, if you want to run Drakkenheim as a full sandbox where the players just say, we want to go here, you can. The way we start that out, though, is that at the start of the book, we have 12 personal quests for the player characters.
Wow.
And these can be everything from... one of the personal quests is I have a family member that wandered into the ruins and turned into a monster, and I need to find them. I have a family member that got mixed up with one of the factions, and I need to convince him to come home. Or one of the faction leaders betrayed me, and I want to kill them. Or I need to find a lost heirloom that's in the ruins. And we actually have guidelines on how to homebrew your own personal quest, and then we give the dungeon master milestones for where the players can achieve their personal quests within the city. And so some of the one thing I'll say is not all the personal quests are created equally. There's some that are harder than others by design. So it's a bit of it really makes it flexible in that way. And the cool thing is that the city is filled with contamination. And so how long you can survive in the city is actually based on, do you have the magic items and the spells and the resources to survive longer and deeper in the city? So the most challenging areas of the city, if you don't have the means to purge the contamination from your body, if you don't have the protective potions, you won't survive if you go there. So it creates this thing of, okay, so we need to learn how to make the protective potion to survive. So we're going to ally with this faction, but this faction knows where the magic flowers are that we need to make that potion. So the whole thing it begins with the player's personal quests, but the personal quests are designed to motivate you to find solutions so you can solve them, and then those problems entangle you with the factions, and it just turns into a mess. And so all the locations in the city are connected in some way to either a personal quest or one of the factions. And and the way that we've written each location is that you can run it basically off the page as a one-shot, but the end of every location in the city says, okay, your players explored this place. Here's a couple repercussions or consequences for the decisions that they might have made here. And so it does require you to execute some judgment on it. And at a certain point in the campaign, we go like, we don't know why your characters might go here, but here's a couple possible reasons why.
If they do.
But if they do, like, here's why they might. Cool. So in that respect, it's kind of a campaign that does grow in complexity. But we all along the way, we give you the tools to put it all together. And at the end of the day, if you as a DM feel lost, you can just be like, you know what? The Tower of the Amethyst Academy sounds cool. I'm just going to have a faction agent come to the player characters tonight and say, hey, we just need this thing from this place. Will you just go there? And you can just run tonight's game from that.
Yeah. Can I drop Drakkenheim into my campaign? Like, it seems like it's a pretty self-contained...
You
Can it fall out of a meteor and just land?
I think it's the thing.
then-
I think the meteor is like a world-changing event. Is the thing.
Yeah.
You can. We actually have 4 things that you need to know about Drakkenheim at the very beginning. So if you want to adjust Drakkenheim to another setting, Drakkenheim is a world where all magic is genetic. So wizards in the world of Drakkenheim are just sorcerers that went to school. And the other kind of world building element is that the gods are distant and not present in the world, because so those are kind of the 2 world building things that just need to be adapted, because those come into some of the motivations of some of the factions. But beyond that, it is very easy to drop it. Like if you wanted to just make Drakenheim Waterdeep and hit Waterdeep with a meteor, you could pretty easily start, changing some of the names
Yeah.
and change that around. Yeah.
That's fun. I kind of want to hit Waterdeep with a meteor now. I mean, if you give me that as an option, what
Yeah.
Kelly, what was it like to, as a player, having gone through the campaign? What was it like to look at Monty's notes? Like, were there secrets that you wish you didn't know, or was there just a bunch of question marks and what was behind the screen?
Yeah, I will say that working on the project was really interesting because I have learned a lot. Luckily, it's actually helped my role play in the second season because I'm playing a character who's a little bit more well versed in the history of the land. So that was kind of a nod for me, having learned the history of everything. But there were definitely some really interesting things that were revealed. For example, learning what was in the crater. I'm gonna have to downplay that when we eventually get there in the show. Um, but yeah, it's neat being a player and then seeing what was finished and what hadn't even been finished at all. So there were chunks that I just assumed Monty would drop these major hints. And I was like, oh, he must have that fully fleshed out. And then when we got to writing the book, he's like, can you write this section? And I'm like, but you hinted at it in the show. And he's like, yeah, I never had anything. I was just going to make it up if you guys went there and then figure it out as we went. So the cool part was the things that I was excited and like sad that we missed. I got to be part of making those up and what the actual answers were. So that ended up feeling really cool, and I feel really blessed to have been part of this adventure because at the start it was Monty's world. Monty was the creator of Drakenheim, but when we got to writing, I remember having this small feeling of like, I hope I can pull my weight. But as we started working on the project, I realized that Monty's Drakenheim was like 25%. It was just like this little kind of strip of a path through Drakenheim. And so to actually build the whole thing out and fill it with everything that we wanted to, I now feel very much that it is our world, and I am as much a part of Drakenheim as he is, and that's been very rewarding for me because as also a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft, cosmic horror, and all of that, it's been really cool to bring my elements in, and both Monty and I have had several conversations that the stuff we write alone isn't nearly as cool as the stuff we wrote together. Every time we would write something, we would then share it with the other person and work off of each other's notes or ideas on how to build it up. And we ended up with things that sometimes when we read sections back, and I do feel like this is tooting our own horn a bit, but I just was kind of blown away when I would read a section back and be like, I feel like neither of us could have written that.
No, collaborative workflow is magic, right? When you can piggyback off each other and you create something that's bigger than the individual, like it's I mean, it's how we do things at Dwarven Forge. Like we're so wildly creative that you just keep layering stuff on, and it just it becomes something that's bigger than any one person. It's the best. You create such cool, I don't know, whatever you're creating. Monty, was it hard to share, say, hey, here's all this stuff, like, go mess it up?
Kelly adds so much to the process, and like the collaboration between us on this book was really eye-opening, I think, because like I found that both of us like have a lot of great strengths to the process, and for example, Kelly is amazing at developing characters, and this is a world populated with tons of NPCs. And one of the things that I loved about this process was seeing Kelly breathe life into NPCs and add dimensions to, like, I had a bunch of NPCs that were basically cardboard cutouts in the campaign, right? That were just kind of in the background, they never got developed. So that was a huge area where Kelly came in and just took all of these characters who really for me were just a name, and develop them into living and breathing people that had interesting motivations and interesting things. I actually found that to be one of the most relieving things of the process, because I'm very much by the seat of my pants and kind of go back into stock characters where Kelly, as a player, Kelly is always making characters. So he brought that kind of attention that he gives when he develops a PC into all of these NPCs in the world. And so like you'll find that in the book, all of our NPCs have personality traits, they have bonds, they have ideals, they have flaws. They're really well fleshed out so that almost any of them, even the smaller NPCs, can become a bigger character if your player characters kind of glom onto them.
In case they do the Rat King maneuver.
Yeah.
So, what were you gonna say, Chris?
I was gonna say, are there any examples of that happening in the show? Are there any NPCs that you that were like a throwaway for you that wound up becoming major characters?
Beside the Rat King?
Besides
Besides the Rat King.
There were a few.
Yeah.
Oscar Yorn was one who was also supposed to die. He's like a malfeasant wizard. And actually, he was so cool that one of the things I'm really proud of is Monty kind of handed over to me to create a couple more malfeasant wizards for the world. Because we were like, well, Oscar Yorn was so cool that there's got to be more than one wizard who's like a bad guy working in Drakenheim. So I kind of got to chomp down on that and create a few brand new characters that I'm really hoping when people see them in the book, they can kind of have the same power that Oscar had in the original campaign, in case your players murder Oscar right out the gate, which they probably could. So if they do that, you have a few backups to play some really really interesting characters.
Revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What so you guys you've launched a very successful Kickstarter. Do you have any advice for people who are, for someone watching here who's, wants to throw something up a Kickstarter? What have you learned? I mean, obviously you're only a few days in, so there's still a lot of learnings ahead, but like, what have you learned? What advice would you give to somebody who's like, hey, I'm ready to throw something up on Kickstarter?
Nate's asking for himself here.
Yeah.
We've been toying with the idea of trying out our first Kickstarter sometime soon.
If you were going to make like a terrain Kickstarter, do you have any advice?
I think my biggest piece of advice, and the thing that I've learned here, is when Monty and I, before we were partnered with Ghostfire Games, we were talking about doing a book, and we were hearing all these people say, make a book. And we were like, okay, cool. Monty, do you want to make a book? And Monty's like, yeah, I want to make a book. And then that was it. We were like, okay, now what? Now what do we do? And it's really about building your team, like finding people who believe in what you want to do and collaborating with other people, letting more people into the world that you're trying to create. Like Drakenheim started as Monty's homebrew campaign. It turned into him and I creating a world together, which then turned into partnering with Ghostfire Games to have them help us bring it to life as a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And like having support. I mean, even stuff like, I don't know, having you guys on the show, and having the support of like other friends in the community, people who we can talk to about these projects and share with them and see how they react to it. And really the more people that you share with, the more people that you get involved, the stronger the whole thing becomes. And I think that's been my biggest lesson, is what we're accomplishing right now is something that Monty and I could have never done with just the two of us.
Well, how many
and
books
even
have you published?
Well, exactly. This
Like,
is
do you-
we
how many-
didn't know
how
what
many
to
books
do.
have you- How many times
Yeah.
have you shipped
Yeah.
5,000 books out ever? Like,
Yeah.
this is all like unknown territory. If you don't have partners in that, you really run into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that's where like the folks that are part of the team with Ghostfire have been amazing. Matt and Jordan, who head up the whole Ghostfire operation, but then our art director Marius, and our social Hannah, who has been basically the everything person. Like there are people who have just done so many amazing things for this project and been so instrumental in putting so much together. And looking back on it, like even now, like we're getting questions, things about like shipping and logistics,
Yeah.
and like we don't know how to do that, and we're still able to make YouTube videos, right? So I think for us, the thing that I would say is the key thing is if you have ambitions of doing Kickstarter and stuff like this, is like know where your strengths are and take stock of where you might need help.
Yeah.
And for us, we were like we knew that we wanted to write, we wanted to create this world, but like Kelly's a pretty good artist, but I can't really draw. And I don't know anything about international shipping logistics or
International shipping is just don't even.
yeah,
ugh.
Yeah.
and so we kind of knew, that's where we kind of knew early on where we thought we want to work with a publisher on this stuff. And I do have to say that like the challenge with that advice is that certainly it helped that we had a successful YouTube channel and had a following behind that, because it makes pitching your project, it gives a little bit of weight behind that, which I think is, from now getting to meet other authors in the role-playing game industry, and speaking with them and their experiences and how they did do the self-publish route, and they did put stuff out on the DMs Guild or did self-publish on Kickstarter and stuff like that, and really clawed their way up.
Yeah.
And so I think that everyone does this thing of like, you have to kind of know when you're ready to do it as well. And I think that there's some amazing folks out there that are far more talented than me that are like ready to just jump in the deep end. And I think that that's kind of the other thing about it, is that don't let with our YouTube channel, we have made a lot of imperfect things. We have made a lot of videos where we said wrong things, where we got the rules wrong, where I think one of the things that is a constant problem that hounds us is once in a while, we'll have a video come out, and Kelly can say to this, where Kelly will edit something, and for some reason the titles won't land properly, and we'll get like a subtitle pop up, and it'll just be a single letter. and you know, sometimes you make mistakes, and things aren't perfect, and I think that there can be a lot of the hesitation for me in this project was like, it has to be perfect, but then letting go of that and trusting the people that you're working with and having people to work with, and ultimately having a really good friend like Kelly to really closely collaborate with, and you know, the patience of our partners as well, the support of the other players, Jill and Joe. It really does come about to like knowing yourself and knowing the people around you, I think, and getting that whole network.
Being honest with your own limitations, and getting people to fill in the places where you're weak, and not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Or it seems like two huge. It's just life lessons, right? Not just launching Kickstarter. That's just like life. Yeah, trying not to get things perfect. Like, we have no problem not getting things perfect. But I mean, we if we waited around for everything to be perfect, we'd never do anything. So we have everything we do is flawed.
Although we
like,
do still try sometimes too hard, possibly.
But it still always has a problem. Like, there's always something wrong. Like, you never get it. Right?
Yeah.
I have this distinct memory. Years ago, before I was who I am now, I thought I was going to be a famous musician. That it didn't work out at all. But I was playing in a band, and our band had written about 5 songs that were great. I thought they were great. But several members of the band kept being like, I think we could make this song better. And 2 years went by, and we were still working on the same 5 songs.
Oh.
And it got to the point where I think my brother called me and was like, hey, you should move out to Toronto and go to film school. And I was like, well, this band doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We've played like 18 shows with the same 5 songs. And I think it's time. I think it's time that I try something different. And it was that I still talk to my bandmates from back then, and they're all doing great, cool things. One of them is now
a song now.
well, one of them's now a music producer. He produces music, and I'm like really proud of him for all that. And I think he's moved past the whole we need to finish this song until it's perfect. But that was a huge lesson for me. Is I was like, the song was good enough a year ago, and we could have released it.
Yeah.
It didn't need to go through this many renditions, and that was a big moment where I was like, I like to finish something, put it out, and then just be like, cool, it's out there. And
learn
it's
from it.
probably not perfect.
Learn from it, grow, and make different mistakes on the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
'Cause we all make mistakes.
we're gonna go to the break in a sec, or the break. We're gonna do our giveaway and our fan build in a sec, and give you guys a 2-minute break. Before we do, are there any teasers or beans you want to give viewers about what's coming up, what to expect in the Kickstarter campaign the next 29 or 30 days, whatever you have left?
Ooh. Kelly,
Yeah.
what is your favorite contaminated spell?
Ooh.
My favorite contaminated spell is probably, I mean, I think I said this the other day, but I'm a huge fan of Ride the Rift. It's one of our contaminated spells where, if you want to know about contaminated spells, these are spells that you can cast with our magical Space Rock Delirium as a focus, and it gives you a level of contamination. But it's a spell that is a level, like, for example, a 3rd level spell that performs slightly higher than you would expect a 3rd level spell to perform at. So it's a give and take. Ride the Rift is sort of a combination of Lightning Bolt and Thunderstep, where what happens is you shoot a lightning bolt, and I think we might actually adapt it so that when you hit a target, you then teleport to right behind that target.
Wow.
So it's this cool combination where you blast them, and then poof, you're there next to them. Or we might, it's either that, or it's going to be you end up anywhere along the line or at the end of where it was. But it's going to be a combination of blasting somebody and teleporting. And I just thought that was such a cool spell. We also, I think what makes it my favorite is our art director got art done of that spell being cast. And as soon as I saw the artwork, I was like, okay, that's way cooler. That's so cool. So the artwork looked really, really beautiful.
Plus, Ride the Rift could be the name of your next band.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Your 6th song could be the one. All right. Well, let's do our giveaway and our fan build, and you guys can take a 1-minute break if you want, 2-minute break if you want to run to the bathroom.
Well, before you head out, you want to pick the giveaway word?
Yeah. What's our word? We need a word for people to type in to win.
Ooh. What about well, I think a super easy one would be meteor.
Now,
Meteor.
is this like with more meat?
Yeah,
or like
meteor.
The yeah. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
If you would like to enter the giveaway, type meteor as in the astronomical phenomenon.
Space rock.
Space rock, the space rock
Space
into
rock
the chat.
meteor.
The capitalization doesn't matter. It can be a sentence with meteor in it. It doesn't particularly matter. We are giving away a $50 gift card internationally. If you're in the U.S., you can also choose to get a basic Caverns core set instead if you prefer that. However, we cannot do that internationally. So international, you can get the $50 gift card.
But anybody's eligible. So
Anybody's eligible,
hop in,
no matter
so.
where you live.
Woohoo!
All right, let's go to the fan build, and you guys can go ahead and take a break if you'd like.
Meteor.
Nice.
Or you can sit right there. There's no reason. You don't have to go anywhere. You know?
All right.
What's
So-
our fan build, Chris?
So today's fan build is actually featuring one of our newer doofers, I guess, one of our newer supporters. This is something they made for their home game. Nate, I actually want you to try and guess what this is. Oh, yeah, that one got flipped over for some reason. Sorry about that. I want you to see if you can guess. If anybody in chat, if you are in the Discord and you have seen the conversation around this, don't say what it is. But if somebody who doesn't already see the Discord conversation about this can guess what encounter this is, that's pretty cool. This is somebody who just started a couple months ago. They joined the Discord. They've been having questions answered, and this is for Tresender Manor. That might actually be right. Red Brand Hideout. Yeah, people got it.
What's Tresender Manor?
Tresender Manor. So this is one of the encounters from Lost Mines of Phandelver. This is a hideout. The Tresender Manor, I think, is what it was under the manor at the start of Lost Mines. Yet, wow, people got this. People are recognizing it. Like, you did a really good job replicating the map. People are recognizing this. Yeah,
I've never played Lost Mines.
I was wondering if you had or not. Yeah, I was wondering if you had, it's I mean it's the most played module.
Yeah, no, I should because people reference it all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing like during Wildlands, right? Like you made that dirt path like along the forest, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's the beginning of Lost Mines of Phandelver," and you're like, "What? I don't know what it is."
I know the name, I just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's now a Magic card.
Yeah. Oh, this is their build for their game tonight. They're gonna be playing this after.
Well,
they'll be playing this after the stream.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so I love seeing a build that's actually a build on somebody's table, right? This is a thing that they're going to play tonight. It's going to see some action, see some story.
There's going to be a mimic in that sewer. Oh,
It's
nice.
amazing.
That's a little extra flavor, right?
What's in the sewer?
He said there's going to be a mimic in the sewer. I think it's a little bit of extra flavor. I don't think that was in the
I don't know.
initial thing. Oh, is it where those barrels are? Is that going to be a mimic or
Is Lost Mines of Phandelver, that's in the starter? Is that the starter?
it's
set?
it's like the first adventure they made. It's supposed to be basically the introduction for people who haven't played D&D before, basically. So it's got like all your classic kind of stuff in the beginning, and because of that, our sets are actually pretty good for building most of the stuff in it because it focuses on like a lot of the really classic locales and encounters. This is like really phenomenal.
Wave Echo Cavern, is that?
Wave Echo Cave is like the finale of Lost Mines. And somebody did, who was it? Somebody on the Discord posted a build they did of it. I can't remember who it was. But it's this massive sprawling caverns build.
It looks like these terrain trays are elevated up on something too. The whole base is lifted a half an inch or an inch.
They are in the chat. Hidden Mana is in the chat.
Well, Hidden Mana, awesome job. And this is, please, share your builds with us. We love seeing what you're building, and we love to share it on here, and we love to repost it on social. So tag us. You post it if you're going to post your stuff up. Tag us. Put it up in the Discord. Share it around. We really, there's nothing better than seeing people take our tools. See how everything's elevated up. It's like
yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely a terrain tray on something.
It's cool. But no, we love
blocks.
seeing all the creative uses of how people are making it their own, and just all the stories that are happening out there.
That Nothic encounter in the bridge room is really something else.
So exciting.
Yeah, it's a cool. I've played through Lost Mines back when I first started on 5e, and I DM'd it for some people when the pandemic started earlier. Some people who'd never played before. I DM'd a remote session or remote campaign for a couple months. The Nothic is a really interesting encounter. I think it's one of the most interesting things in Lost Mines is the Nothic encounter. It's a really interesting creature.
He's on the bridge.
So he's hiding in that room. They don't
Staring at
see him
you.
at first, and so they can try to communicate and talk with him, but he's under like some orders, like protect the space and everything. But he's not like so subservient that you can't like. So it's one of the most interesting encounters that doesn't have to be just like a straight like bad thing, kill it.
There's options.
Yeah. It's also just an interesting monster that doesn't get used very often.
I wish there were more. I mean, I don't know because I haven't actually played any of the official modules, but I crave encounters that aren't just a cut and dry. Like you don't have to just fight the thing immediately, and it's one of my big like playing with the kids. I always try and give them the option to do something other than fight it.
Yeah. How often do the kids take that option?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really well developed for a kid.
Yeah. I did a quick, just out of nowhere, theater of the mind, 30-minute session with the neighbor. She wants to start playing, so I gave her like a crash course with Grayson and Hawk, my 4-year-old, and like did a crash course thing and sort of presented them with an ogre, and they didn't fight. They outwitted it, and it was really like there was not one bit of combat, which was better for the story anyway. It was like
Shrek really did so much to defang ogres. Like
well,
nobody takes him seriously
The first
anymore.
ogre was three kobolds in a trench coat, and so then
that
they
probably didn't help either.
and then they're like, oh, maybe ogres not so bad. And then they of course immediately wanted to adopt the kobolds. They were like, well, we got to keep these guys with us. They were like, And so there was then them and the 3 kobolds in the trench coat against the actual ogre.
Perfect.
3 kobolds in a
so
trench coat
cool.
pretending to be an ogre.
It's also awesome to see this because when I was DMing it with like the maps and everything, like dealing with like the elevation was a very difficult thing to do using the top-down maps. It's cool to see the whole thing built
awesome.
up.
Well, thank you.
Right.
Please share your builds. We love seeing this stuff, and congratulations, Hidden Mana.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So let's roll this giveaway.
Perfect.
Let's give it away.
Giveaway. 75 people entered. Let's see.
Woo! Good luck.
Jay Balcano. Jay Balcano?
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Jay Volcano.
Jay Balcano. I'm going to message you real quick, and we will figure out if you prefer to have the gift card or the basic Caverns Core set, and we will get that all sent to you. Perfect.
Woo.
I'll start doing that, and then let's bring the dudes back and get back into the next part of this stream.
Welcome
Hi,
back.
welcome back.
Hi. You were off screen, so it's like you weren't even here.
They're in a pocket dimension.
I think the call has come from inside the building, Chris. They've been here
It
the
was
whole
sweet.
time.
It was
cast
scary in
rope
that
trick.
pocket dimension. Please don't put me there again.
That banishment spell was short-lived, but it was worth it.
Just
So-
like rope. Is there a version of rope trick that like you use for like unwilling creatures as opposed to, I guess, banishment?
Banishment.
Yeah.
Banishment is and banishment only lasts a minute, so yeah, that was appropriate.
It'd be so fun to like tie a rope around somebody and then rope trick it and just send them floating up into the
Into Canada.
yeah.
I guess the other one would be Maze. Maze would be like the high level version of that as
Yeah.
well.
Is good.
Yeah.
So, welcome back. If anybody somehow randomly just showed up now, right after the giveaway, terrible timing. We're here with Monty and Kelly from the Dungeon Dudes, who just launched an awesome Kickstarter, and who also talk about D&D a little bit on YouTube twice a week, and play D&D every week on Tuesday nights. So while we have a couple of D&D experts here, we wanted to hit you with some D&D questions. And maybe the answer is always going to be, oh yeah, we made a video about it, here's the link. Oh yeah, we made a video about that, here's the link. But I guess me personally, I am always looking for better ways to prep when I'm DMing, or I'm just curious as to people's process, right? Because my process is a mess. Although it turns out Monty's process is just right, like yellow lilies and creeping moss with a question mark. So I don't know. So what's your prep process? And I know, because the core of this is I never have enough time, right? Because whoever it is, like, it's that weekly game is always coming up, and you're like, so I'm trying to maximize my time. Like, what are my high value activities? So what's your process? Question mark.
I have to say a huge part of my prep, especially before all this world, when we could play together in the room, a huge part of my prep was just breaking out my Dwarven Forge collection and my miniatures, and oftentimes I would work from either a photograph of something that I was interested in, or a map that I had found online of something, and trying to recreate that as best as I can with the Dwarven Forge stuff, and usually letting the miniatures and the physical space inspire me. And then I realized Kelly told the anecdote earlier about the notes that I made that were such a small thing, and the reason why my notes were so sparse for that was because I had a photo of a tiered garden. And I had built using the pedestal step pieces and the wall pieces and the archways and a bunch of KS5 stuff. I built that setup. So I just knew, like, I had the photo in my mind and I had the layout built on my table. And so, like, especially when you're building with Dwarven Forge stuff, I find that doing the prep while I'm doing my build is really high value.
Yeah.
Because I can just let the imagination go wild. Because when you do play with Dwarven Forge, you have to have that prep time of doing the build. So I find it's actually very efficient to let the inspiration of building with the pieces kind of take you in a certain direction.
So for those of you that don't know, Monty has been a longtime DF backer and user and supporter, and he's mega backed, like all the Kickstarters, maybe too much. So, it's, it has.
You don't want to know how much he has.
The old it
he showed
started
these cabinets, and all the
Yeah,
miniatures.
it
There are
started
rooms
really
down there.
big
It's full.
with City Builder. The first two Kickstarters, I was still a very poor student, just coming out of like my master's.
Now you're a poor
so-
academic.
Now I'm a poor academic, so I had a very modest amount of like KS1, KS2 pieces that are still a big part of my collection. So I was really glad when KS5 and 6 came around because it was like round 2 for the stuff that I couldn't go big on. Yeah.
So
Um,
what's your? Oh, sorry, Kelly. You go.
or no, I was just going to kind of give my notes on DMing as well to add to that. Is that cool? Do we have time?
Yeah.
Dude, so not cool.
We
so
got
not
nothing but
cool,
time.
Man, oh man. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I was just going to say like. Not only like I agree with everything Monty said, I wanted to add something that a little bit extra on top of that. Something that I
yes,
do.
and.
Yes, definitely. Dwarven Forge and my minis inspire a lot of my creations. But also, it's kind of funny that something that I found is when I DM, I do the opposite of what I just pitched was our big lesson about writing the book. So when we wrote the book, we had to take Monty's sparse notes and turn them into fully fleshed out ideas.
Yeah.
When I'm DMing, what I do is if I'm running from a pre-written module, I'll read through the entire chapter and then write down only the point form notes of what's important about that session. So like an entire thing that has like, here's what's in every room, here's all of this. I end up writing like, this character wants this, and there's a few goblins, and I'm gonna play them like they're a silly Three Stooges. And then I kind of end up tossing the book aside and ad-libbing 90% of what I do. And I do think that one of the biggest skills as a DM is, the modules don't need to be a dedicated Bible. They don't need to be like this is how you have to run everything. As a matter of fact, I like them to just be inspiration for the story I'm going to tell. And so if you take that and combine that with your terrain and your minis and just see what you come up with, you can actually do some really cool stuff and a bit more free flowing without having to page flip all the time.
If you take the screenwriting trick and what does this NPC want and what's the obstacle, right? If you just have if you have a motivation and an obstacle, you can make a whole scene from that, right?
Yeah.
What does the ogre want? And what is what's in its way, and then the players will run with it. The other, and I also I do the Sly Flourish 10 secrets or 10 discoveries to jot down quickly. So like because then you can just take that for ad lib, like just a little ammunition for your ad lib of like, okay, well, Lenore is there with the creeping moss, and they can find out that there's yellow lilies. Okay, we can work with this. What do you circling back to your doing building as prep? How do you like? Do you jot down an idea? You're like, okay, I want to do these gardens, and there's going to be, the players are trying to get a thing on the top or whatever, and then you build it and figure it out along the way, or do you build and then figure it out? Do you never figure it out? Like what? Like how does the story and the building? What's the interplay between story and building?
I think that sometimes it varies. Like sometimes I'm very deliberately trying to create a specific look or a specific environment.
Mood.
And sometimes, especially when the new deliveries arrive, I'm like, I haven't used this piece yet. I got to use this piece.
This is an excuse to just use whatever the new. Yeah.
And so, like a good method, if you have a good minis collection, is find the miniature that has the most dust on it and use that tonight.
Right, this guy hasn't seen some action. Let's get him out there.
Yeah. Get it going. So yeah, and sometimes it just comes from like, when you do have that spare time, which is becoming a precious resource, but of just like free building and just playing around with stuff and seeing, oh yeah, I can make this will be a cool scene. One of the other things that I also did do quite a bit is I have on my phone pictures of builds that I've done in the past, and I like to call them stock builds. That if I know that I'm gonna need it again, I can build it really quickly. So like I have a couple photos of like basic taverns that I had with the city builder and some pieces, and so if I know like that I'm just gonna, and I have this tavern build that I have recycled like a dozen times. But it works, it's efficient, and it's really easy to just move the furniture around, and it's just a different tavern. But fundamentally, it's the same city builder pieces. And it just makes a really easy tavern.
Do you wait? You have that? You have it physically, or you took a picture of it and you add the photos in virtual tabletop? I mean, add the furniture in virtual tabletop, or you used to have the physical build just sitting on your shelf and you.
I would have the physical build just sitting on my shelf.
That's awesome.
But I would have the photograph of the physical. Like, what I do is I would take a photograph of the physical build so that even if I disassembled it, I could use the physical build, the photo, to rebuild it afterwards.
Got it.
Like that, yeah. And I gotta say, like, if that's a secret Dwarven Forge trick, is like, well, you see a lot of glamour shots of Dwarven Forge builds.
Go on.
But I actually do think that I would love to see the Dwarven Forge community do just as many, like, here's how it fits together shots. Because so many times I see a glamour shot and I'm like, what's actually, like, even when you guys were showing just the build this time, you were like, what's holding up those terrain trays? How did that all fit together?
Yeah.
And I want to know. I want to know. And I do think that, like, to all you DF fans out there that are taking photos of your setups, if you do something really, really clever, like, get in there and show us, like, where the pieces are coming from, and even because as someone that's been on the Dwarven Forge forums all the time, like, I know how often someone will be like, where is that piece from? Or what is that? Or how did you do that? And so for myself, I like to make sure that when I take my really boring looking, just top down with my phone shots, it will let me rebuild it.
The exploded view, like, right when you pull all the pieces apart a little bit so you can see how it goes together.
Yep.
I hadn't thought of keeping a catalog of my, like, frequently
You hadn't
used
thought of
builds.
that?
I hadn't.
That's great.
I call them stock builds. Like,
yeah,
so
no, it's so obvious. Like, of course. Like, why would you not have, like, it? Yeah.
Everybody's telling you guys to join the Discord so you can see all the behind the scenes. They get really granular about, like, all their build tricks and everything in there.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll join the Discord. I love watching Dwarven Forge builds and learning from them and seeing different ways that people use different pieces. Every time that I see a different build, I'm just like, I didn't think of using it like that. And then my next build, I try it out, and I just love that. And, like, I've done this so many times. I've run a lot of the modules, but what will end up happening is I'll start building with Dwarven Forge, and then I'm like, oh, I want to use these pieces. And all of a sudden, like, kind of same as what Monty was saying earlier, I think there was one time that I was running a part of Out of the Abyss, and I ended up with a completely different map than what was in the book. And I threw a roper in there because I found my roper mini and was like, I haven't used you in a while. Yeah. And so I ended up with this dungeon, and the party loved it. And afterwards, like, one of my buddies, what he would do is after we would finish a chapter, he had all the books, and he would read the chapter to see what I did as a DM different. And he read the chapter and was like, where was that dungeon? And I was like, it was an accident.
It was an accident.
The day that we were getting ready to play, I started playing with Dwarven Forge, and next thing you knew, we had a different adventure to go on that night. So, but that's the fun of it. That's really the fun of it.
Yep.
Do you what makes a good for you what makes a good build for storytelling for you? Is there anything that you try and do when you guys are putting together a build? Is there any have you guiding principles on, like, what you want to accomplish as you're putting a thing out for your players?
One thing that we talked about in actually an episode that we shot today, so stay tuned. This is for a Thursday, I think, next week. So here's a little spoiler. But one of our main points, we're doing a video on dungeon design, and one of our main points is about thinking in 3 dimensions. And we're on the Dwarven Forge show, but realistically, Monty and I have been huge fans of Dwarven Forge for so long, and Dwarven Forge is what taught me to think in 3 dimensions within my dungeons. So because of that, when I'm building dungeons using Dwarven Forge, I have a ton of pieces to, like, help elevation and, like, change the elevation types. Yeah. And so I really try to think in 3D. I try to, like, build different platforms and areas and put minis on different levels. And that way it becomes much more dynamic. And then while I'm doing that, I have a bunch of the little pieces. One of my favorites is I was running Out of the Abyss, and I bought that pack, the mushroom pack of just all the different mushrooms. And I love just, like, I would just take a room and plop down all the mushrooms, and I made like a myconid dance party in this like mushroom patch.
DM
that ended up
advice:
being
Myconid dance party. Period.
it was so fun. I role played them like hippies, and they were just like, "Hey man, come dance with us." And it ended up being one of the favorite moments for my players. And that was actually inspired because as I was building with the Dwarven Forge, I started plopping the mushrooms down, and I was like, Myconids, and I had like purple glowing lights going on in there and stuff, and I was like, Myconid dance part, and like it just built from the inspiration, and there was multiple paths they could take, multiple levels to this dungeon. So I really try to look for those layers and pathways that characters might go down, and try to branch it out as much as possible in my build.
I think as well is that sometimes when you build with the pieces, you don't anticipate all the ways that the players will see the build from different angles.
Yes.
So one of my favorite examples, and this is actually a thing that Kelly did, is I was doing a city builder build. I think probably the city builder might be like one of my favorite sets just because of the verticality.
Well, you're gonna like Cities 2 coming 2022.
Boy,
And,
my
and
wallet.
I remember building a city street with the alley pieces where I had a couple buildings all together, and I just had the cart with the barrels stacked up on it, and it turned out, I didn't realize this, but I had parked it right beside a balcony and under a window. And so what Kelly saw is that he was able to run up the cart, jump onto the balcony, crash through the window on the other side of the opposite floor to climb up onto the roof on the other side, and then jump across the alleyway. And so he saw that, and like you would never see this in a two-dimensional map of that thing. You would never think that, oh yeah, a player's going to look at that and go like, I'm a monk, I'm acrobatic, I'm super athletic, I've got a speed of 100 feet, I can dash up there, crash through this whole thing, and now I'm on the rooftop running down our opponents. And so, especially like one of the biggest things I think that really hit me is the windows in the city builder pieces are really obvious.
Yeah.
And so
Giant.
players see them and recognize, oh, I can go through windows now. And it becomes a huge part of the dynamic of any urban environment, and especially when we were running Drakkenheim too, where we have the ruins pieces on top of that. Jill, one of our other players, was playing a Tabaxi Ranger, and so Tabaxi have their burst of speed ability, and they have a climbing speed, and so she would just find all these ways to scale up the buildings and climb over the ruins pieces, and her basic frame of like her mindset was basically, what is the fastest way for me to get onto the roof? So those little magnetic roof pieces that let you have
the
a
Assassin's
miniature
Perch,
the Assassin's Perch, those things, I basically have those in a little container right on the top shelf of my I have a little container of the little Dwarven Forge bits that rest right beside where my DM screen, and those are always there.
I have the collection of the bits I need all the time. The Assassin's Perch, the little golf tee to reveal the fake floors, a couple LED torches, all the all the little stuff, torch stand, all those little things that you pull out all the time. Well, that Assassin's Perch, those were literally made because I was like, we need a way to have playable space on the roof, and then this lets you can use it as decoration, or you can just use it to move minis around on the roof and do chases, or when your monk dives through a thing and is jumping off the whatever, and feline agility. Give it the best part, giving your players a chance to use these movement abilities, particularly when a lot of times your combat area isn't massive, so that monk that's got 100 movement is like, well, what am I going to do with all this? But now when you work in the Z-axis, you can actually get your movement's worth out of it and do something really exciting. And the fact that you remember that moment of him doing his parkour nonsense off the cart up through the thing, that's it created this memorable moment.
Yeah.
Dwarven Forge for me, Dwarven Forge and a monk was a great combination because it was just a monk's playground. It was any build that I saw, I was looking for the verticality, the windows, the doors, the balconies. It's just I don't know. I feel like I didn't experience that. I couldn't have experienced that more with a character than I did with a monk. And that's just a shout out to a class that gets some of the least love in the community. But monks with a vertical with a three-dimensional space to play around with. I also had the boots of striding and springing,
Oh,
I
geez.
believe. So I was having a ball.
Wow.
I think that's the. I think that's the thing. Yeah, like I think monks benefit from terrain so much just because it lets you like really fully imagine movement in particular. And movement is like such a huge part of who they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and the what Monty was saying is that before when you quantify the space, but when you quantify the terrain, like you can't, no matter how good your theater of the mind is, you can't quantify all of the details and the distances. You'd be hard pressed to specifically say there's a cart parked with barrels on the back that are just high enough that if you leapt off them, you'd be able to reach the balcony that's above the window that's in the thing. Like, you can't get all those specific, hyper specific details, but you build it, someone can see that and like build it out, and it's God, it's just,
And the result is something cinematic.
Yes.
Like you described that, and this is one of the kind of interesting things is that's where it kind of comes full circle, because when we imagine that, Kelly has this great thing. Well, you should say it, Kelly, about how it works in your imagination afterwards.
Yeah, something. I mean, this has always been when people tell me what's the moment I fell in love with D&D, and it was the moment that I think we played a session, and after the session, I realized that we had been like, I'll use the monk for example. What happened was I picked up my little mini and I went, all right, I'm going to run up this cart. I think I'm going to jump through this window. Can I do that? Yeah, make an acrobatics roll. Okay, cool. I nailed it. Then I'm going to jump out this window and climb on the roof, make another acrobatics roll, nailed it. Awesome. That's what happened. What I remember is like an anime cinematic scene of me like Assassin's Creeding through this building and like leaping, flipping up. And so like when I remember these scenes in my head, Dwarven Forge and the minis were there to illustrate and show me what I could do. But the thing I remember is a cinematic masterpiece. It's a scene from an action movie.
Yep.
And that happens so much in D&D where the minis and the terrain are just there to guide the mechanics.
Yep.
But you'll remember the scene in your head.
It's the blocking first. This is where we are on the stage. It's the blocking, and then the story. You give the flavor to the story, and the cinema comes there further. We had this. So it just reminded me of this. We were play testing Caverns Deep before. I don't remember if it was actually still with the foam, or if we were doing it with a first batch of pieces or whatever. But Janet, who's our lead designer, was playing a Dragonborn monk, and there was a scene where we had this. It was there was a land shark chasing them around in this thing. There was raised areas. They had to stay across, on the raised areas or they get eaten, whatever. And we had the whole thing was like built out, and she was like, "But what about the ceiling that you haven't built out? Are there stalactites?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course." And then. So then it went into theater of the mind there was all this stuff built, but she was like, no, I got to go up even higher because I can jump whatever, and was then working stalactites that weren't even built to work around the thing. And it was like just the best, but it took, all this build, and then she's like, no, I have to go even higher.
Yeah,
Monks.
that's why I really like the ancient pillars and the castle builder walls that are double high, because it really helps you get that extra height behind it and reinforce that idea of an open space. Because sometimes like being able to build double high with things like City Builder and the castle walls is a lot of. I really like how that illustrates the height and the massive chambers and stuff like that.
Kelly, is the build that you're talking about the one that you sent a picture of?
Yes, actually, it was.
look
It
at
was
it.
during that campaign when that was where my monk was trying to save people from those buildings, right?
Let's pull up some of these pictures and look at some of these things you guys.
I'm gonna go ahead and line up that one.
Woo! Oh, and then we should do some audience questions too.
Yeah, I've got some audience questions built up.
Awesome.
Awesome. So let's go to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look at that build. I can totally see. All right, so let's see if I can find the card. Yeah, there it is. There it is. It's in like the top right. Yeah, or is it the one on the left?
Or
There's
is it
two
on
cards.
the
there's several in there.
That
Yeah,
card's
so
by the way.
in this scene, this was from Monty was running a modified version of the Red Hand of Doom, and this town was being raided by the hobgoblins, and we were trying to save the villagers. And so my monk having the most speed, I was leaping through buildings to try to grab the villagers because the buildings were being set on fire by the hobgoblins. And so yeah, I was like the all-star jumping into the buildings and trying to save them. And it was just such a cool moment in the campaign.
So fun to
yeah,
be
that
able to
whole thing
build
was
that for your characters, right? To be able to set them up for this, to be able to shine.
Yeah, we had a character death that night. That was one of the most
Ooh.
iconic builds. Yeah, we were trying to flee because the Hobgoblin army was coming in, and one of our players decided to hold them off for one more turn. So he turned to throw one more spell or shoot a few arrows. He turned while the rest of us ran, and they all caught up with him and ripped him apart.
Jeez.
And it was brutal. Like, not only did the town get burnt to the ground, we did save most of the villagers, but it was such an intense night of D&D because that build I'll always remember, because we showed up and I was like, oh, it's the town we've been talking about. Here it is. And then Monty busted out the Dwarven Forge fire pieces that you put on the roofs and the window. And suddenly everything was chaos. And then we ended the night with one of our players dying and all the fire everywhere. And we were all just like,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, and that was fun too because I can see some people in the chat asking. So I was using the buttress pieces and the Aranther Mountains to do a ruined bridge. So it extends out, but basically, that's the cube block from the castle builder
Yep.
with the ruins and the
Spacer.
buttresses.
Yeah.
And so what it ended up looking like was like a ruined causeway. That the span of the bridge was gone, but then these were the blocks
Yep.
that used to hold up the bridge that used to be there.
And then
to be there.
Are those docks or there's just railings? It's like wood floors and railings is like a dock
Yeah,
area and like it's
Because
great.
this was before Caverns Deep,
Yep.
so we didn't have a boat. We didn't have a
So
Dwarven
good.
Forge boat yet. Yeah.
Well, it's a testament to just giving people a box of very versatile tools, right? You can use a lot of these things. So, a cube of stone you can use for a lot of things, from a castle to a ruined bridge to a whatever. This is the best. What else? I love you use the flying buttresses at the beginning and then the solid buttresses in the middle. Like, it just looks awesome.
Yeah, a lot of the builds that I have are photos of are using slightly older sets. But what was great is like how creative we were able to get,
Yeah.
even with those older sets.
What else? What else do we have, Chris? What are the other?
I've got a couple pictures in here. So a lot of these pictures feature these hex tiles. People are really curious about them.
We were talking about these before the.
Yeah, we were talking about it
show.
before the stream.
They are called Terra tiles. I don't know if they're in print anymore, but
No, those guys
they
went
were a
under.
very good foundation. Before we had like Wildlands and all of that, they were a very good foundation to plop Dwarven Forge on top of, and you could really use them together to make a beautiful scene. This one here was also from the Red-Handed Doom. I think most of these photos are from the Red-Handed Doom, but this was us flying in on griffins to attack a hobgoblin and ogre encampment that had been set up to block trade routes along the road. And so we soared in. Actually, I think one of these dudes threw a rock and blew up my griffin. We very tongue-in-cheek played it that a rock hit my griffin, and luckily I was a monk, so I fell, but landed just fine. But then I made it up that the griffin actually exploded behind me, like crashed and blew up, so I just
The
landed
Michael
like
Bay,
a superhero.
Yeah.
Well, there was a huge explosion behind me, and then I ran in and started punching ogres. But that was just another really fun build of just once again using the city terrain, but to
Yeah.
build like a little encampment for these
You get
ogres
the
and
mantlets.
hobgoblins.
out there
Yeah.
protecting thing. Like it's just awesome. I want to play. Nice, such good clean builds. Like
Yeah,
just-
and I think one thing to note too is that we use true measurements in our game. So I have a bunch of measuring sticks that are used in tabletop war games. So we don't bother using a grid or anything like that. We just rely on actual true
Yeah.
like 1 inch to 5 feet measurements.
I like it. I end up doing that a lot. With I don't know. I feel like particularly we using the z-axis so much, right? Because there's no. I bet you have a video on this. In 5e, there's no explicit rules about how you measure. Do you do the hypotenuse, or are you doing like, what is the measurement? So I use a tape measure a lot for these weird diagonal things, particularly because my brother, he's a theoretical physicist, is always trying to do some nonsense shenanigans right at the maximum edge of his range or whatever. So I'm like, no, I gotta get a tape measure out. This is like getting too, like, you're trying to beat me up.
This build is we were in the mountains to recruit some dwarves, and we had to go to like an ancient shrine up in the mountains. So this is an old dwarven like shrine that we had to tour to, and this is the old dwarf that came out and was judging us to determine if we were welcome in or not. And just this build always stood out to me because, I don't know, again, there's something about showing up to game night and seeing a build like this that just makes you're like, I'm so excited for whatever the heck is happening.
Well, there's a 10-inch high tower embedded in a wall, a mountainside, like, how do you not?
Yeah.
Like it's
So that's the I believe that's the castle builder and the mountains and
Yes,
some of the
Mountains.
classic cavern set in there.
Yeah, it's awesome. And a dead like ogre in the foreground or something.
Yeah, we fought him to get there. I think he wouldn't come out. He wouldn't open the door because there was a group of trolls or something that was trying to get in. And so he wouldn't open the drawbridge until we defeated all the enemies there, and then he opened it up and stepped out.
I think that that's the troll that got the immovable rod stuck in his head.
Right, our famous immovable rod story.
How did
So,
you...
okay, shortly before this, this is one of the wildest plans that we ever had in D&D. We had to get these statues down the mountain. So our plan was to lay the statues on their back and sled them down the mountain and blow up the top of the mountain to cause an avalanche because there was a group of trolls after us. So we caused the avalanche and started sledding down the mountain, and this one giant troll got onto the sled with us. So we're fighting him. He's trying to throw us off the sled. We're trying to throw him off, but he's way stronger than us.
He's a
So one of our
troll.
players, yeah. So one of our players, Mitch, had an immovable rod, and while we're sledding at high velocity down the mountain, he just jams it in front of the troll's face and clicks it, and it clotheslines the troll because now it's stuck in space. And the troll just goes flying off into the distance and gets consumed by the avalanche, and we sled to victory. And then later, the troll regenerated and came back looking for us. And so this is where we found that troll again, was at the shrine. The troll came back for vengeance, and then we had to kill him.
Wow.
Shadow of Mordor stuff.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. How
Yeah.
did he get out of the avalanche?
He realized that he could press the button of the immovable rod with his tongue. He would jump into the air and use the immovable. I think like the immovable rod was like stuck in his head, and he could activate it with his tongue and was like using it to climb.
All right. I'm so there for that. I mean, immovable rod's one of the
Immovable rod
greatest.
was lost.
It's one of the greatest
Yeah.
D&D. The shenanigans it enables is just outrageous.
It's such a simple idea, but
Yeah.
it's so fun to play with.
Yeah.
Here's a great rule of thumb for DMs out there. If your players come up with the wildest shenanigans with the immovable rod, but in doing their shenanigans, they will lose the immovable rod, always say yes to that plan because, like,
Right.
just let it happen, because losing the rod for a cinematic moment like that it has to work. Like, you have
Yes.
to just go with it, because it's just going to be so fun, and it is at a cost. And they're only going to be able to do that once. So I always vote, like,
Yeah.
if they're going to blow the immovable rod to do something awesome,
Yeah.
do it.
This is an example of Monty didn't know what was going to happen during the game tonight, so I just built a rocky mountain wilderness sort of environment and decided that whatever happened tonight, this was going to be
here.
the game.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And sometimes you just have to do that. Like sometimes what I'll do when I'm prepping for a game and I don't know, because you never know
Yep.
what the players are going to do tonight. I'll just prepare like a generic outdoor environment, or have like that tavern build on standby, and that's where the terrain trays are really handy, because you can just fly it in and swap it out.
Yes. Did you get any battle boards in Wildlands? Are you?
I'm pretty sure we got a couple battle boards.
I mean,
in
right?
our
You ordered
pledges.
them 9 months ago, so I'm sure you remember
Yeah.
your order precisely. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, because I know you're a big terrain tray fan. I'm curious if the battle boards were appealing, intriguing to you or not.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Monty, do you remember this one? This was a great scene. This is from a homebrew campaign. What we did is, so we were in, this is our time loop campaign. We had 3 days, so this is very much inspired by Majora's Mask.
Yes.
In the campaign, we had 3 days. We arrived in a city, and 3 days later the world ended, and then we woke up 3 days earlier, arriving in the city. And so we kept having to live through that cycle and learn what was going on. So in this scene, we've lured one of our main villains to a place where we knew that they were going to be there, because we've lived through it. They actually killed us about 2 or 3 times. So because we knew that they were going to be here, we went into the sewers early and planted explosives underneath. And actually, what isn't shown here is, I believe Monty had actually built a layered dungeon where you could remove the streets, and underneath was sewers.
Of course you did.
And so we went under and we planted explosives all along this street and lured them there. And then we went out and started talking to them long enough to have one of our members hop into the sewers and set off the explosions, so that they all just they fell into the sewers and were killed.
I wish there was a photo of that, because I was really proud of. I used sidewalk pieces and the cavern ledges to blow up the street, and it looked really good. Yeah.
I don't know if, I think we were too into the game and I forgot to take photos. I took photos before,
Yep.
but during the chaos, it was tough. I was always trying to take photos of our setups, but sometimes you're just playing.
Yeah, because the sidewalk pieces come in 2x2s and
2x1s also.
in 2x1s, so you can take one of the street pieces out. You put the 2x2 sidewalk pieces in on either side, and then you just use the caverns pieces to build the hole in the street, so you can have like a cratered street, and then you can go right down to the sewers
good.
underneath.
So good.
That's really clever.
People are saying to rebuild it and take a picture and throw it in the Discord.
Yeah.
I'll bet actually now, because this was before KS5 and before KS6. I'll bet I could build it even better with the new ledges pieces in those sets.
Yes. And wait till the next city's Kickstarter. You really.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get into some of the questions people have.
Oh yeah,
for
we're
you
supposed to
guys.
ask questions. Wait,
Yeah.
wasn't there one weird surprise build or something?
That was the first one we actually went
That was the
to.
first one we showed.
Okay.
That's what led the segue into showing the pictures.
Backwards
Was,
order. Okay.
he brought up that story. All right, so we got a couple questions here. First one is from Knighthood X. He's wondering how you normally set up your session 0.
We actually do have a video on our channel about running sessions. No, for me, running a session 0, something that's really important is, first of all, setting expectations with your group. Like, I get everybody over. Session 0 is something that should take place in like the comfort of your game night setting, whatever that looks like for you. We have snacks, we have all of that going on. And then we go over the expectations for the campaign, what everybody's expectations are, and what my expectations are as a DM. We talk about character concepts, everybody pitches their character, but then also we discuss something that's very important, and I think Monty can also speak to this, is once everybody's kind of pitched their character, we have everybody talk about how their characters might know each other. We're big fans of not having to start the campaign with a bunch of rivalries and like, oh, my character's not getting along with your character,
Yeah,
and like
that's nonsense.
that can sometimes happen, and that just creates a lot of headaches, I find. So we always have a rule of like your character needs to know two other characters that are playing.
It's great.
And so when I'm doing a session zero, it's what are the relationships and what has led you to this adventure. And that's not something that I want each person to come up with individually. That's something that I think flourishes from talking as a group about it. And so then once you actually get to that first session, you have a very good foundation of the teamwork that's going to be built, and also the expectations. And the DM, me, I now know where everybody's head is at, what they're expecting, and what their team dynamic feels like, so I can feed into that as a dungeon master.
Nowadays, as we go into session zeros for any of our stream games, especially, I end up usually having conversations with every player one-on-one, both before and after session zero.
Wow.
So I'll have a conversation with Kelly, Jill, and Joe with like what some of their character ideas are, because I will revise my campaign premise to better suit the player, what the player characters want to do and what direction they want to go in. But also I will often ask them to revise their characters to better mesh and to build those relationships in. So for us, having characters that are very connected and grounded within the world is really important to the storytelling outcomes. We love having characters that have relationships, that have really cool motivations, that have really cool goals, and have really interesting flaws. And so often, more recently, our session zeros end up being this iterated process that happens across like Discord chats, Facebook, like Facebook Messenger messages will go out. We'll have one-on-one Zoom chats and calls, and then we'll actually have the session zero where we bring it all together and talk about those things. I would say it's a very collaborative process for us. And usually the players have a pitch document for me going into it as well.
Here's a PowerPoint presentation of my character.
Yeah, something like that.
We've got a question from...
That was a great question.
Yeah, we've got a question from Arcanist Winterbrand.
Arcanist.
What are you most excited to see out of the next Kickstarter? Which you said you're a big fan of cities. Have you been keeping track? Like, have you been seeing like the stuff we've been showing out? Because we're being pretty transparent about the development of the next one.
What else I told
have you
what we
heard
were
of any
gonna
of the
do?
stuff that's coming in the next cities Kickstarter? Or
I've heard bits and pieces, but with our heads under the rock with our own Kickstarter, I feel a little bit behind. Although I do know that the rumblings are more city stuff, and so I'm just excited for more urban stuff because I plan on running another Drakenheim campaign, possibly offline again. So I'll have lots of use for more city stuff.
Yeah, actually, once this book comes out, I'm going to be running Drakenheim at my home game. So you can see from a lot of our builds, the city builder is pretty iconic. And so having more buildings, because
More options, yeah. That's our top driver.
You guys
More
are doing more
variation in
with-
shape and more flavors. So it's not just Tudor and Fieldstone.
yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn, but you guys are doing some cool stuff with roofs, right?
Yes.
we've got a
Modular
modular
system.
roof system we've been showing off.
Yeah.
I think for me that is one of the things that excites me a lot, because definitely like I like what you can do with the roofs now, like the way that you can link the gables together and use those, but like definitely being able to build different roofs and bigger roofs is something I'm really excited
Well,
about.
and to be able to then lift that roof off as a unit, like we're gonna be able to
Yeah.
giant thing.
Yeah.
And
I love that we live in a world where roofs are the most exciting thing in the world right now. For us, it's like roofs.
it's a big deal.
We're so excited for roofs. It's like,
Well, as a
yeah.
monk, you're like, ooh.
The roof system is one of the more popular things we've shown off.
The roof system's gonna be
Like,
bonkers.
people are really happy about that.
And How about a roof with a DF floor fogger in it so smoke comes out of the chimney?
Beautiful.
'Cause,
Just
confirm.
bring that imagery.
It's gonna be awesome. Well, I know we talked to you guys. I don't know, like 1,000 years ago. It must have been like 3 months ago or something. It wasn't in pandemic time. It was like 1,000 years ago. As you were ramping up for this Kickstarter, and I asked you what would you most like to see in a city, and do you remember? Do you know what you said?
Did I say like more ruins?
Yes.
Yeah.
You said more ruins. You're like, I can never have enough ruins. You know, running a game in a ruined city, I need more ruins. And I think Rabbit Burner would agree, and whatever. So
We have a lot of people who are ride or die for ruins, for sure.
ride or die for ruins.
You know, everybody loves a good functioning town, but there are just as many destroyed towns. And sometimes your functioning towns need to be hit by a meteor. And so if
players plant explosives in the sewers, and you need to
exactly.
blow up them.
Or let's face it, like there's not really, is there a problem that you can't solve with Fireball, and don't you need to be able to represent the aftermath of that problem being solved?
Okay, yeah.
It's gonna be rough if they ever go to the plane of fire.
Yeah. Well, the other who did you say this on air? I don't know. We also talked about doing something like in cities a Drakenheim kit or something, or set or something. Is that something that people would be excited about? Is that I mean, it seems like there's, I don't know, what, 4,000 people. How do you have 4,871 people that seem excited about Drakenheim? So
maybe several of them might want a kit to build Drakenheim.
I mean, it'll just be a big plushie of a ruin that can sit next to the next to the Rat King, and then you have a scene.
I think like I'm really interested to see what kind of set pieces, like the special pieces that you guys come up with this time around. Like I could rattle off a wish list of things that I would love to see you guys do. Cause like, I have things that like.
What? Out of curiosity, what would be your top 3?
Okay. Can I? Okay. This is a.
We're not gonna be able to confirm anything for you, but out of curiosity.
I would love to, for some reason, I would love to just have a magnetic clock piece for like a clock tower or a town hall or something like that, like something that was like, because you get that big image of like a clock of some kind, like just decoration pieces like that could really, or like more gargoyles, like definitely like things like whether it's a clock or a gargoyle or a curtain or like all those types of pieces that like give character to a building that like help tell the story of its purpose.
So you wish this was a clock, a gargoyle, and a curtain. Okay, check.
No,
it's a great list because we got that.
The more ones would be like just decorations in general. Kelly, do you have anything that you would like to see?
Okay, this is just probably out of left field, but something that I've always wanted from a Dwarven Forge set, and I feel like it would belong in like a city set. It might be kind of an expansion on the city set, kind of the way that like the last city set had sewers, right?
Correct.
Garter ropes.
I always thought that there was room to do like a necropolis sort of vibe.
Oh.
That might be way too
We're not
far-fetched.
going to do
but
a necropolis because it's too specific for this, but yes, that would be.
That's fair. I just, you know what? To broaden that, there are peripheral elements of a city that I could see branching out into, like beyond, like the parts of a city that are always there.
What's like a riddle?
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of something
Red
other
herring.
than like.
Yeah.
What's?
Have you guys thought about how you might do like Wildlands City cross builds? Like
sort
I'm
of.
just
Where our joking term was the Mildlands, right? It's where the Wildlands hits the city, and I think it's going to be its own thing. Like it's very urban centric. This one, we're not like we started talking about and there was like, well, do we do more? Do we touch on frontier and farmland and whatever and mix? I think we're basically going to be very city driven versus where, because there's a whole bunch of like, the frontier area where civilization meets the wilds is kind of its whole own whole own.
See,
thing.
that's actually not where I was going at all.
Oh,
I was
good.
thinking like urban parks.
Yes.
Because like like
Yep.
like where like
greenery
where
and
because one of the builds that I've done a few times with some other pieces where I've done a manor house where you have the street, the building, and then there's a backyard
the villa.
where
Like, yeah.
yeah, and so like there's a couple of the like I've had like a couple like low walls. Oh man, are you guys doing like any wall like
Yep.
not like walls but like
Outdoor walls.
Yeah,
Like for
like-
Wayne
like-
Manor. Yeah.
Last week we
Yeah.
just revealed
Yeah.
this exterior wall system that the plan is to let you take like your stone, usually like any of your city builder walls like will slot into it, but it's then like a post system to basically let you make exterior walls out of them.
Like you did in the we played that 2-shot with you with the museum. I had that whole
Yeah.
walled in area
Yeah,
in the back.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's where I think like, for me, one of the things that's always in your Kickstarter campaigns when I follow along things where I always get really excited is when you start doing the cross builds and showing the examples of how like you took something
Yeah.
from a previous set and
Yeah.
combined it with the current set and married those things together because
best.
I think that's where the creativity really goes wild. Like I used to play with Lego as a kid, and so like it's
Hello.
when you did it's grown up Lego. So when you get to like disassemble it and turn it into something new is really really cool.
Yes.
For that reason, like I think I've seen someone do like a lava build that went over the Dread Hollow Forest.
It's really
And that
cool.
was-
That's a really cool one.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
I really like this idea of like by combining the wildlands and like all the city stuff, you can really build a more rural setting. Like rather than like inside a city, you actually can make like farmland or things of that sort with a little bit outside the city. And I think that
yeah, there's
yeah.
I can't wait to actually just have a mess of pieces and start playing with all the stuff. It's gonna be
You guys should. Can you guys make like? Can you sell me an attachment to my house to store Forge because
You're not
I'm
the
gonna run
first
out of
person
space.
That has asked this.
Dwarven, yeah, we're gonna do a dwarven storage campaign.
Yeah.
How's your like you know, do you have any wizards on the project that can make like a portable hole or a bag of holding?
Toby's
like-
working on it, but he hasn't.
Yeah, when are you gonna
idea.
have like the Dwarven Forge extra dimensional space where
You-
we can just
You know what would be amazing too? It would really help us with shipping because you could put the whole, like all the wildlands untamed in this one portable hole and then ship it for $5, and it would be really.
That would be amazing.
As
Yeah.
long as
It would be.
Problems you could solve with bags of holding if they were
Yeah.
real.
as long as
You
they
can
don't wind
just
up putting
put-
one inside another one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
don't make
yeah.
don't make a portable hole mini that we then put in the bag of holding and problems.
Problems.
Yeah.
Big problems.
Um,
Well, let's take one more.
yeah, I'm
one
gonna
more
try to
question
get-
from the
Uh,
audience. Will we?
so Topulus says
Oh no, it's about
uh,
modular ships.
it starts off fine. What biome would you most like to see from Dwarven Forge?
And
Why is it modular ships? Yeah. What?
I'd really like to see modular ships. No,
So like outside of the city stuff, like is there anything that you wish we haven't covered yet that you really wish we had outside of city
boy,
stuff?
what haven't you covered?
People bring up
Yeah.
like tundra, desert, jungle,
You know,
underwater.
The first thing that actually did pop into my head was like, as we're going up those beautiful mountains, it's going to get pretty snowy. So that was kind of what I was thinking is like snow-tipped mountains, tundra. That was my very first thought. But that was me trying to fish for what I didn't see in my collection already. So
What would
deserts would also be cool. I agree with both of those. Tundra and desert would both be really neat. Because I love world-spanning adventures. I love where you
Yeah.
do go to different parts of the world and experience like great heat and great cold. Those are fun elements to play with in D&D.
I want to feel like Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? You just want you want to be just jumping all around from dangerous
Yeah.
site to dangerous site.
You don't say based on your character that you played in our game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, I hate to sound maybe this is a boring answer, but I would love to see more architectural styles
Yeah.
in dungeon stuff.
Yep.
Just because for me, I am such a lover of dungeons, and so one of the things that I have on my hit list to try and get my hands on is like, you guys did the resin catacombs set, and I don't have those, and I gotta get my hands on some of those. That's been a project of like sometime trying to
The
hunt some of those
bad
down.
news is I don't think we're ever going to be able to restock them. Basically all the resin factories have closed, or the ones we used closed. There's another one that we're using, but the price is like, it goes up. It's a lot, right? It used to be like $200 for a catacomb set. It would be like $280 or something for, I don't know, just getting. But here's the good news for you, Monty. In like a year or two, we're gonna do Dwarvenite catacombs. At some point, we're gonna get there.
Okay. Then
we were gonna do them in this city, but it was too much to tackle.
Yeah.
So we're gonna push them off to their own thing. But I don't know exactly when it is. So, by the time you have kids, we'll have some. We'll have some catacombs.
Well, that's super exciting, because for me that I get my wish, right? Because like I want to see more more diverse dungeon sort of settings, and like I love the old resin sets that did have like the different settings. I remember missing out on those, and so because I missed out on those when they were in resin, it would be lovely to see a revisit of those ones.
You're
or an
not
expansion
alone.
Of those ones.
That's not at all a boring answer. Like people,
there's so many just cool aesthetics in the resin stuff.
Yeah.
Where like you see like Realm of the Ancients and Den of Evil, and like just the patterns that they've got on the walls and floors are they're really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys did a Dwarvenite version of all three of those sets, I would be 100 I would be 110% on board with those, and
unlike the rest of their Kickstarters.
Yeah, I know, Monty. You're 110% all. I mean, that's scaling back. You're 150% normally. What are you doing? You're putting all back.
No, it's not the exception, but yeah, for me as someone who I love dungeons, and the I like to see diversity in my dungeons. I like to see a variety of cultures and architectural styles and cool things like that, and whether it is like, because sometimes you can get a lot with just a bit of dungeon dressing, and just a few cool pieces of dungeon dressing just utterly transform something into something 100%. That it's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes a palette swap, like, there's a part of me that wishes I had have gotten more unpainted stuff now that I've got a little bit more time to do some more painting, because definitely, I've seen people that have done different paint schemes for KS5, and it really changes the feeling of it, and that's really cool.
There's some really incredible custom paint schemes. The custom paints that people have done for Dread Hollow are wild. There was actually Kelly, when you brought up the dancing mushrooms earlier, one of our longtime supporters and hobbyists, Packarat, recently posted some mushrooms that they painted, and one of them was like a galaxy mushroom.
Whoa!
Where they did like that classic like purple with like the stars, and it authentically looks like space, and it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
What about?
It's amazing.
What about if we were going to do sci-fi? What would you like to see us do in sci-fi?
Okay, I could just go off right now. That you just said sci-fi.
We'll cut the stream and go off. Here it is. Here.
So you might notice behind me I have the Alien RPG. So I'm actually like, as soon as I bought that, I was like, man, I wish I had some Dwarven Forge sci-fi stuff. So like spaceship interiors, both human style and alien tech. You could even do like, I imagine multiple types of alien, like future tech, but also like kind of the alien, like the
Giger.
Yeah, so you could do like that, but then also, different planet atmosphere type things, like desolate worlds with like alien plant life and things like that. So I actually think that if you broke into sci-fi, there would be a ton of places to explore, because there's so many different.
Like that was like 4 Kickstarters.
There's so many there's so many different aesthetics. Like sci-fi is so there's so many extremely distinct but like very specific aesthetics.
It's a
Like-
it's a big thing to unpack. What about you, Monty? What would you like to see?
So
In the
I'm a big fan of like very industrial looking stuff. I would love to see something that could make like a factory.
Yeah.
Right, like with like really like something especially that would be like that environment where like, you know, the end of Terminator 1.
Yep.
Right, where it's like the car part factory with like the piston smashers and like the metal catwalks and stuff. And the reason why I think that would be really cool is I think you could justify using it with classic Dwarven Forge for a steampunk game.
Yes.
Catwalks are so cool.
Put it
from
in a cavern and do a thing, and like you could. Yeah.
Catwalks are so cool from like you can elevate them pretty much anywhere, but also just like the idea that it's also something you can like shoot down through is interesting.
Yeah. Like weird things like scaffolds and catfolds. Actually, to expand that to like the biome question, have you guys ever thought about doing like mines, like mine tracks as dungeon dressing?
We've been asked about it a couple times.
People ask about it. I don't know why this one feels too specific to me, and I feel like it's and people there's mine tracks out there, and you can take the model train tracks and stuff. Like it doesn't interest me as much as a lot of other things that I feel like would be used more often.
I feel like if you ever did another Caverns, like an extension on Caverns again, you could throw mines in as a part of that.
Yeah.
Also with the sci-fi, I think the short answer for Monty and I was everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seemingly we covered the entire genre, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's kind of the problem is like, we'd like to decide, like, I don't know, based on our surveys of kind of everybody wants everything.
Absolutely. And everybody wants everything, and now put in LEDs, please.
Yes. Dude, lasers,
but also
LEDs.
But I'm telling you, if I do a live stream of Alien, like I'll buy all the, I'll buy it all. I want it.
Yeah.
Well, we should wrap it up because it's already past 9.
Yeah.
Are you sure you don't want to go for another 4 or 5 hours?
We could. We just need to bring you back some point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's always a treat. Like we love hanging out with you guys.
It is, and you know what? Speaking of playing D&D with you guys, I've been lucky enough to play D&D with both of you guys, and if you're ever going to do like a 6-episode thing or something, like I'm in. I want to do like.
Well, we still have to go to the North Pole, right?
Yeah.
Just announce that Drakenheim Unlimited stuff.
I want to do a run, like 'cause it's just so much fun. You guys are just absolutely a delight to play with, to hang out with, to just be be a part of what you're doing.
It's honestly it's a dream come true because I think I said the story in another stream tonight. When I was a teenager and I had my first summer job, I bought the core rulebooks for D&D.
Yes.
And I bought a copy of Dragon magazine that had an ad for Dwarven Forge in it. And I was like, I have to have that. And I blew my first paycheck from my first summer job ordering the original like Revan. My resin set has bow ties.
Wow. It's like the Room and Passage set, like the original.
The original Room and Passage with bow ties. I got Room and Passage with bow ties, an advanced builder set, and the Wicked Editions set.
Yes.
All mine, and they all still have the bow ties, and I still have most of the bow tie connectors. And I used those for my very first game of D&D that I DM'd. And so for me, Dwarven Forge is synonymous with Dungeons and Dragons and running that. It's been part of my experience running this game. So for me, getting to interact with you guys and hang out with people on the Dwarven Forge team has been it's mind-blowing. It feels like such a privilege. I'm so grateful to be able to hang out with you guys.
Well, we love you guys and are very grateful to have you here, and are looking forward to, man, you get 30 wild days in your Kickstarter, and I can't wait to see where it goes. If you didn't, we threw the link in the chat there. You guys also have you have your YouTube channel people should go to. You have a Patreon. you guys are. Is there on social media? Is there a place to follow you? Should I just go right to YouTube?
just look up Dungeon Dudes. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. The main platform that you will find us on is YouTube, obviously. But we poke around on the socials and like post links and occasionally post like some fun questions or engage with people through there. But if you are looking to engage with us, the best way to do that is through our Patreon, which gives you exclusive entry to our Discord. And that is kind of for our patrons because it is a direct link to our whole team, where you can just come hang out and chat with us about all sorts of D&D stuff. Really great community there, so that's a lot of fun.
And
And then
guys,
obviously we have our live stream and everything too.
You gave a sneak peek to your Kickstarter out on the Patreon, too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
2 days.
If you're
before.
on our Patreon, you get
Yeah.
you get a few sneak peeks.
Yeah. That's where it's gone there. So, and of course, you can find the Kickstarter on Kickstarter, or if you just plug in Drakenheim.com, it'll take you right there. And all of our social media handles are usually Dungeon Dudes or @DungeonDudes. So usually with an underscore between them. So
Cool.
Most of the time.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking a break to. Shouldn't you be like figuring out stretch goals and stuff, right?
This is our break.
Yeah.
This is us not working right now.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
We're back
appreciate
to it immediately after.
From not frosty cold, hot and humid Canada to Dungeon
Yeah.
Dudes. Thank you guys. And
Thank
for
you,
everybody else,
guys.
we'll see you next week. If you're not already following us, all our Dwarven Forge socials are down below. You can follow me on Twitter @NateTaylor if you want, and Chris is @ChrisLondon, actor extraordinaire or something. What are you? Like,
Man, I wish there were that many letters in no, Chris London film.
film. That was it.
Yeah, I'm not particularly creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Thank you. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, you guys, the audience. It wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for you.
real treat. Thank you.
Night,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.